What's up, weebs? Welcome back to Anime Lane. As always, I'm your host, Notorious. Joining me once again today is Shaun.
Hiya.
And... oh, Melina's not here.
Oh, where'd she go? Where'd she go? Michael, where is she?
I put her in the... no, wait, I shouldn't say that.
No.
She's busy, basically.
She has a life.
Yeah, she does. Melina, at the end of last year, had the option of just finishing university or doing one more year, and she decided, fuck it, I'm going to push life off for another year, and is doing...
Hey, you know what? Based and fair. I don't blame her.
That's very fair. So she's very busy with, it's her master's, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
So she's going to be busy for the next couple of months, so that means it's just me and Shaun running the show.
You are stuck in this room with us for the time being.
Until, at least, I think February. At least
possibly January, but it's more likely to be February.
Yeah, I think at the earliest she would come back on episodes is February, but you know, I can't promise anything because you know. So yeah, that means if you do not like video games, you're probably not gonna really enjoy it.
Yeah, get the fuck out now because it's our turn, motherfuckers. Welcome to the games corner.
We've sort of been soft launching this for a little bit with like
the
last couple of months. We had the Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty episode just a couple of weeks ago, and then in fact that was just last week for us as we were recording.
Yeah, that was new.
And then like
that was not intended though, by the way.
That just happened. And then like a month before that, we went on like a weird tangent just about, I think, video games in general. It wasn't specific enough for me to get like a title and thumbnail out of it, because I just called it "We Subject Melina to Video Games" or something.
Yeah, we forced her to listen to us talk about video games.
Yeah. So that's her natural fallback, and if you didn't listen to Napcast, you would not have been around for the time where we did that once and just sort of talked about Halo and Summer Games Fest, but we were not as good at this back then.
No. We did not have the experience, so we were very much, I mean, not to say we don't go into tangents still, but like, holy shit, we were not coordinated.
No, we just tried to talk through each Halo game bit by bit, but like without any prompt whatsoever. Like, we hadn't played them recently at the time.
No.
Whereas now, today, you probably have seen by the title, we're going to be talking about Resident Evil, because this is a game that's like completely consumed both of us over the last year or so.
Year and a half for me, definitely.
Yeah, I've played through like all of the mainline entries over the course of this year, minus 5 and 7 because I replayed them last year. We've played 2, 3, and 4 remake in a call multiple times.
Yeah, you sort of played, and I just sort of like helped you along and like watched you and stuff.
Because your first experience of 7 was actually in a call with me.
Yeah, because back then it was the only one I was too scared to play, because it was initially it was that in Village, but like 7 was very much trying to be the scariest game in the franchise at the time, and while I've gotten over it a bit thanks to this series, I was very much a coward when it came to anything horror.
Yeah.
So, and I was just sort of shuffling that off, so I needed your help to get through RE7's story.
Because it's worth mentioning that was like July 2023 or something like that.
Yeah.
So we hadn't even done either of the podcast Halloween episodes yet, where we covered like actual horror movies.
We had done like the nap stuff at the time for like the Halloween stuff, but we hadn't done anything for Halloween Lane.
No. Yeah. So that was interesting. Because I think the first year of the podcast did we do Halloween? At least in terms of watching movies. I can't remember what we watched.
We watched Shining, I think,
and Doom. Yeah.
And Doom.
That's right. Wow. That's a throwback.
It was a while ago, though, yeah. The early year.
So yeah, I think our start point today is, as I said, we should probably make like a ranked list of our like entry, our favorite to least favorite Resident Evil video game. So for mine, I want to stipulate, and I think this might go for you as well, the only ones missing for me in terms of mainline quote-unquote entries is I haven't played the remake of the first game, and I haven't played Resident Evil 0 as of yet.
Yeah.
I do intend to play them soon for a reason.
Same. I need to get on 0 at some point. I know that, but like, I don't know if I want to get on that, or if I want to finish. We'll get to this later, or if I want to finish Code Veronica first. But we'll get there. I haven't finished Code Veronica.
You haven't finished Code Veronica.
So.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. I don't care about spoilers, so you know.
That's fair. Who's going first? Like, how do you want to do this? Do we want to like just go through like, do we want to go from worst to best, or the other way around?
Let's not to end this on a sad point. Let's start with our worst. Maybe. Okay.
So, I think we may agree on this.
I think we're very much in agreement on this one.
My least favorite is Resident Evil 6.
I fucking hate Resident Evil 6.
It's to date the longest game in the franchise and is the worst fucking one.
It is the culmination of that era, not even with Capcom, but just with games in general, where like Call of Duty was the big thing.
Yep.
And every sort of game somewhat adjacent to action wanted to be in that sort of style in a way. Although with Resident Evil 6, they also tried to put in a bit of Left 4 Dead, which you could which arguably is more like connected, but also it's not quite. Not quite.
No.
It's a fucking slog. It's a slog in every single campaign.
It's so endemic of like where the industry was at the time, where like every franchise had the co-op game, where it was so central to that entry, it almost always fucked it all up. Because not just Resident Evil 6, but like I just replayed all the Dead Space games, and 3 is so heavily a co-op game. But at the same time, if you play it solo, unlike in Resident Evil 5 and 6, where your partner is still constantly with you if you're playing solo, Dead Space 3, you just don't have that other character. So you have combat encounters with enemy counts designed around the fact of having 2 players there, but you're one individual.
That's terrible.
But at the same time, Resident Evil 6 is still worse.
Yeah.
Because it's just not a well-designed... It's very ambitious, but it's not fun to play at all.
And it's, for a lot of it, for me, not even... I mean, the gameplay just sucks, because, like... there are people that like the gameplay, and I can sort of see why, but, like, for me, I'm like... The mechanics and the controls just feel so off to me, like, there's a whole melee function that like I can never seem to get like down with. But like it feels like the game really tries to focus in on that in some like ways you deal with enemies, and it makes dealing with them such a clusterfuck to me. Yeah. Because I don't like the melee mechanics, so I usually want to shoot, but because ammo is still pretty fucking sparse in some campaigns. Especially like the Leon one, which is like both the longest campaign and the one that feels like it had the most time put into it. But like, it's that weird mix mash where they want to do full action, but they also want to treat some of the ammo like it's still survival horror. So you're running out of ammo like fairly regularly, which means you're kind of flailing around, not sure how to deal with the enemies that are like thrown at you.
Yeah, I remember like a very early part of the Leon campaign where you go into like the church and you have to deal with like the swarm that starts like breaking out in that section, and like it tells you that you have to snipe enemies up on like the upper level, but like it doesn't give you enough sniper ammo to deal with those enemies, so like it just prolongs the combat encounters needlessly because you don't have the ammo. And then it's like the same sort of thing starts happening in the Chris section a bit later, where like you're fighting like a big enemy but everyone's split up and you're having to run between buildings and climb it and then attack the big monster, but like you're constantly running out of ammo, and it keeps prolonging each section either by saying, oh, now you need to go underground to get to this building, and the underground part has so many enemies that you need to deal with.
And the best part is you get to experience that all over again with Sherry.
Yes, yeah.
Sherry's in this game.
Yeah, Sherry is in this game. I didn't play Sherry, I played Jake when I last played it.
I picked Sherry mainly because she was a character I recognized, and it's like, it's Sherry Birkin grown up. I want to see where this story goes.
And then
it's not as interesting as I thought it was going to be.
No, it is very much Jake's story anyway.
And I hate Jake as a character. I hate him as a... maybe not as a concept, although I think the concept is kind of stupid.
Yeah, no, the concept's dumb.
Because he's explained in his campaign that he is somehow Wesker's son.
Yeah, like, who and when did Wesker?
Like, I'm not making any comments on Wesker's sexuality, but he doesn't seem like the kind of guy that knows what sex is.
No, like, this is like a worse... Well, no, because that implies that one would say is bad. It's like a bad version of Golden Wind. Not to bring JoJo into this too much, but like in JoJo, you follow Giorno Giovanni, who is the son of Dio, the reincarnated Dio who takes over Jonathan's body. So he's like half Joestar, half Dio.
That's still funny to me.
Yeah. And
how does that work?
It raises the questions of like who, when, and
and how.
And how.
Because like Wesker seems very much like the character, like, not to make the joke answer, he doesn't know what sex is, her. But also like Wesker seems like the kind of character that would very much not want to have any sort of child because he'd see it as a threat.
Yeah, exactly.
So how the fuck did Jake happen? Because given the age, it feels like he was born at... If the game takes place in 2012 and Jake's supposed to be like, what, early 20s?
Yeah.
Like, that means at some point prior to Resident Evil 1, like a good 5 years or so before, I mean, he was still like either a junior at like Umbrella or even still, or even at that point if stars had been established and he was like the sort of captain thing. At some point he found some random woman and just like had a night with.
But even then that doesn't make sense because like he doesn't become like
super powered
until later, and it's implied that Jake has like some of that going through him too.
Yeah, the post-credit scenes of the whole game is him basically having his powers being like shown off and stuff. I think, if I remember right, it's been like over a year, and I don't want to go back
so
to check.
That needs to be post Code Veronica, right?
You'd think.
So the timeline doesn't add up.
No.
And
there's the whole thing as well that Wesker had to get himself killed just to activate all the stuff that he'd done to himself.
So unless it's like after, Wesker's had the work done, but like it hasn't, activated yet because he hasn't died. So maybe, but then like, does that genetically pass down to?
Yeah, how does that work?
Yeah.
we don't know because the whole Wesker side isn't even explained that well in his own story.
No.
Like, we don't, from what I remember of his story, we learn that he's Wesker's son, but it's not explained how it happens. We don't learn anything else about his family or the potential mother that was there. It just sort of happens, and then Jake's like, oh yeah, I heard he was a dick, and then he moves on.
Yeah, like, he does not like his dad, but then he still gets annoyed at Chris because Chris killed him.
Yes.
What?
It's literally just to have another bullshit conflict at the end of their campaigns that doesn't get fulfilled because they work out their differences immediately anyway, just to survive, because it's the end of their campaigns and there's a boss chasing them.
Oh, I hate that section so much. That's another thing. That boss is such a bitch to deal with in the Chris campaign. That final boss of Chris's campaign, you do not have any fucking ammo left, and you're just left to deal with this boss.
No. I had to fucking knife him for a good chunk, and that took like, I think it took me like an actual hour to get through that boss fight.
It took me so many attempts, and I can't even remember how the fuck I actually killed it. I
don't either, to be honest.
God.
I just remember very viscerally being like, within half an hour of like that boss fight, and Chris is like the second campaign I played, so that was like basically halfway through the game. I just remember very much messaging you, just being like, I hate this game.
Yeah.
I hate this game so much. I don't want to play this game anymore.
Because it's probably worth mentioning, like, if you play it on PC, you have the free will of picking any of the campaigns to start with first, except Ada's. Ada's, you need to have played through the rest of them, right?
It's either the rest of them, or maybe she unlocks after like one playthrough. I can't remember.
Whereas I think on the original console version, you had to play through Leon, and then Leon would unlock Chris, and then Chris would unlock Sherry. So like you had to progressively work your way through it.
It's the Sonic Adventure progression, because that sort of happens in that game with multiple characters. Like once you beat them all, you get like an extra campaign, which you'd think is supposed to tie everything together, but no. Because it follows more the separate ways philosophy of the campaigns, where she's just sort of there doing her own thing.
I don't care how many times we see her ass when she's crawling through the vents.
That's half the reason the campaign exists.
Is fucking awful. But then the whole game is awful. Like, it's just...
all the campaigns are awful.
There's an option in Resident Evil 5, at least on PC, I don't know if this got added to the console versions, where you can reduce the number of QuickTime events that you have to do. And it's automatically on by default, and I didn't even realise that when I was playing through Resident Evil 5. But I was sitting there thinking, wow, I remember there being way more QTEs when I first played this in 360 back in the day. But there's no option for that for 6. And 6 is just full of them. Like,
every single little moment has an extra QTE.
Like, to the point where you get no downtime as a player to just, like, breathe between things happening. Like, you're constantly asked to be engaged with the game. And, like, cutscenes are usually a point where, like, sure, you're watching the cutscene, you're taking in the story or whatever, but it's a point to relax as a player, to get a bit of a break. You can take a drink, you can, grab eat your snack or whatever.
You have breathing room.
But you don't get that in 6.
No.
6 is constantly demanding your attention and your awareness at any given moment.
Because again, it's trying to emulate the sort of style at the time, which was the Call of Duty thing, which is just action, set piece. You don't stop, which is so antithetical. That's the word, right? Yeah.
Antithetical, yeah.
Antithetical, yeah. I know I was pronouncing it wrong. Antithetical to the whole Resident Evil thing, where like you're supposed to like take your time, sort of plan out your whole route thing, how you want to deal with a situation. Even 4 and to an extent 5 had that thing where like 5 was more action, like game centric like this, but at least when you messed up, you had a time to be like, okay, here's how I messed up. I'm going to try it this way this next time. You can't really do that in 6. You're just supposed to go.
Yep. It's crazy because like 2 and 1 and 2 I'll use as an example, because it doesn't really apply to 3 in the same way. But like the first 2 games, like they're set pieces, but like you're in the set pieces for a while because you're doing all these puzzles, you're doing all these different things, and like you say, you're planning your route out. And that also applies to like 2 Remake, which I just recently done like a new or like another playthrough of them the last few days. And it's like, even playing through it with everything unlocked, because I've done just about everything in that game except get S ranks. And like I bought the pre-order for 2, so I end up with like bonus stuff anyway, and some extra unlocks and stuff. So playing it through with like the infinite ammo minigun, just to make things easy,
blast through.
It's like you're still planning where you want to go, you're still planning on how to deal with things. Have you frozen? Yeah, so apologies if Shaun sounds very bad in the next episode and suddenly better now. We've just switched around some stuff that I didn't even register would probably have been happening.
I hate Discord sometimes. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
That was a me thing. Seriously, you sound way better in my headphones as well and everything.
But yeah,
Christ.
to go back to what I was saying about like 2 and 1, 2, the remakes, and like how 6 sort of gets everything about it wrong. Even 2 remake, which is a much like it's still survival horror, but it's a bit more action orientated. And if you've done everything, you can tip things in your balance and make it an action shooter. But you're still wanting to plan your route because you're wanting to be efficient, but you're also wanting to like avoid misdirects. You're wanting to avoid maybe the lickers because the lickers are still a bitch to deal with or whatever. Whereas 6, it's like you're just breezing through all these different set pieces and not really getting any time to acquaint yourself with anything. It's just like move through like a different location every 5 minutes. Or work your way down this mine and then we'll move on to the next chapter where you're in a different location. You spent like a good chunk of the game in 2 in the police station, and then it's only when you've spent like half of the game there, I think in the original, you go to the sewers, and then once you're done with the sewers, which is like a third of the game, you go to the lab, which is the final like portion, and it's you get time to explore all of these locations, whereas 6 just fires you through so many different places.
Yeah, it's like its own sort of minigun, just like shooting like set pieces at you, like with no time to really let them like sit.
Yeah.
And just to go into this, I know it's gonna be a running theme that every Resident Evil plot on some level is kind of stupid.
Yeah.
But like usually it's a fun kind of stupid. Like it's an 80s sort of horror B movie sort of like stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's The Matrix if it's called Veronica.
Yeah.
But 6 is just it takes the shark and it does like a daredevil sort of like leap over like 50 of them.
Yeah.
And how batshit it goes. And to the point where it's at least the other ones were coherent in their stupidity, whereas this one, what the fuck? I still don't even know what like the family was or the connections or whatever the hell it was supposed to be. Whatever pseudo secret society was the bad guys in that series.
The 6 they wanted to set up so much amidst a point of not having a fucking clue what to do with the franchise, so like nothing in 6 gets like answered or followed on from. But that sort of as much as they're back at a point of they're doing well again with it, I still think that an issue of committing to storylines is an issue with Capcom, because like Blue Umbrella from Resident Evil 7 and then Chris in Resident Evil 8, it's like, what? These two characters, the same version of this character doesn't line up with the previous game.
No. Because we'll talk more about that, I think, when we get to like the 7 and Village section, because I feel like we're going to pair those up pretty close together in our rankings. At least I do in mine.
Might be interested to see mine, but we'll get there.
Oh, okay. Anyway, to go back to 6, I feel like a lot of the microcosm in like the plot stupidity is just all of the Ada stuff. And this is like this ties into like a series-wide thing as well, where like Ada gets introduced in 2, where she's like a secret sort of like an agent for hire, basically, where it's implied she's either working for a rival company of Umbrella, and later it gets revealed that it's Wesker. In 4, we see her directly working for Wesker and like doing some of his shit, but original 4 also has her going with another organization that she secretly works for that never gets brought up again.
Yeah.
So, a little bit of a crack there. And then in 6, all of that is disregarded. She's just a freelancer, like mercenary, basically.
Yep.
And it makes me just sort of realize they had no idea what they were doing with her.
No.
At any step of the way, and that just sort of sums up all of 6 right there and then.
Yeah. I hate 6 so much.
I hate so much about 6, and I'm glad I never have to play it ever again.
Maybe in the future you might have to. We shall see. What? Okay,
Let's move on. Let's get positivity back in here.
So the next entry on my list won't match yours because you haven't finished this one.
Ooh, no.
My next one is
from what I have played some of Code Veronica.
So I've finished Code Veronica. I've played the full thing, and that's the next one on my list. It's my second least favorite of the franchise that I've played so far. It's just so fucking frustrating. There are multiple points where you can just bar yourself from progressing if you haven't done certain things right, or like haven't conserved enough ammo and healing items, or if you've not put certain things in the boxes, or you know, stuff like that. And like I'll fully admit, to finish Code Veronica, I had to use cheats during a certain point in the game because I just had to. Like, I couldn't actually progress past a certain boss without using cheats, which is insane.
That's you shouldn't have to do that just because you've been playing, like, normally.
Like, I wasn't using a guide, except at times where I got lost, because that's my other issue with Code Veronica, at least in the opening section of the game where you're playing as Claire and you're working your way through, like, it's a hotel and like a military place, and
it's like an island thing.
It's like an island thing, and there's like 3 different locations, and you're constantly moving back and forth between all 3 of them depending on what you've picked up and you've unlocked. And like I kept getting lost because I couldn't fucking remember where anything was or what I had to do.
And the areas of that island are so spread out as well. You're taking at least 5 minutes just to backtrack from one place to the other. It almost wants to like be like a Metroidvania sort of thing, but like Resident Evil isn't quite a Metroidvania.
No,
it doesn't have that scale. So it just becomes a lot more tedious. I remember that a lot from when I was playing, because I didn't get past like the Claire section, but I think I got pretty far into it. But like, the reason I sort of stopped really was because I knew there were points where you could like soft lock yourself out of the rest of the game, and I kind of knew that like I had wasted too much ammo, and like I had used like either this kind of weapon like too much, that like I knew it was almost certain I was gonna be blocked off from the ending, so I didn't want to go back, and I couldn't use cheats because I'm on the PS4 version.
I see. I was playing an emulated version. I'll be upfront that like most of the early games I played emulated. I don't own Code Veronica yet. Whoa, that's a big admittance. Anyway, I own every game except Code Veronica. I actually have Japanese copies of the first 3 games for PS1, but I emulated the American versions because that's obviously, you know, the 60 FPS.
Up until very recently, you couldn't get them anywhere else.
No, and even then, I would say that the PS1 versions are probably still, I would say, the definitive way to play them as a from a player standpoint, because unless some mods get put together to kind of bring certain versions, I think there's a Source Next conversion for 2 and 3, but I'm not sure about 1. Unless there's mods that bring across the Japanese settings, because if you play the American, it's the American version that you get from GOG, there's no auto aim, and the thing is, like, that doesn't sound like that to any modern player of video games. You think, oh, why would you want auto aim? If you're playing these games, you want auto aim. Like, it's just the games
they make it a lot easier.
Control so in a way where you it's very beneficial. The game's not that much harder without it, but it's definitely a preferred way to play it, and I think it's very lacking without it.
Especially just going off like my own experience, especially 1, because I played a good chunk of I think I actually, because again I had to emulate like the original trilogy like PS1 games because I couldn't get them anywhere else. I wanted to buy them. I do now own them on a GOG because I got those like immediately, but like I had to emulate them originally, and the version of 1 I actually completed was the very original version.
Okay.
Because I wanted to at least try that first release, just like felt more authentic, which means I completed that whole game without auto aim.
Jesus,
that was a bitch.
Oh, I own both the original and the director's cut for PS1, and I played the director's cut version, not the DualShock, just in case anyone's listening and going, but what about the soundtrack? That's just in the DualShock version.
Yeah.
So I had auto aim, so I was fine.
Yeah. I will say for games like for 2, I played that because the version I had did have auto aim, but it wasn't like automatically unlocked, and I actually didn't know auto aim was even a feature, because in the menu it's not called auto aim. It's just like another. It's called like another controller type.
Yes, it's type C and D both have auto aim on, and unless you know that, you're not going to be using.
I didn't know that until like playthrough number 4. When I was doing like player B or something, so I played like most of that game without auto aim, and the thing is with 2 it's actually fine, just because of the way the game designed it. I was actually fine with manual aim there, but with 1 it's painful because of the enemy type.
I can imagine,
especially the hunters. The hunters require you to have auto aim just to like really have fun.
Yeah, we were meant to be talking about Code Veronica.
I know.
Yeah, emulating it meant I could use cheats. That was what I was actually getting. Because I was emulating the PS2 version, because I think, as far as I know, even with the PS4 and the PS3 HD version, I think the PS2 one, I'm leaning towards still being the best version. Unless there's something about the Saturn version I don't know that makes it better. I'm not sure.
Did Rana get a Saturn release?
Not Saturn. Dreamcast, I meant. Sorry. Dreamcast. That was what it originally released on. Unless there's unless there's something about the Dreamcast version that's better, and I don't know about it. But yeah, I would say if anyone's thinking of playing it, like, if you could get your hands on a PS2 copy, just emulate it. It's probably the best way to do it. Is emulate it on PC.
Buy the game though. We can't stress enough. Do buy the game. You wanna.
Yeah.
You should own these games.
Capcom isn't going to earn any money, but you should buy it. It's cheap as chips. It's not hit the retro market of stupidly insane like the local copies of Resident Evil for the PS1 here are insane. If you want like just even the UK release, which is inferior because it doesn't run at 60 FPS, it runs at 50. And I try to think how much the American copies cost, but like the Japanese copies were cheap as chips for some reason when I bought mine.
Lucky.
But yeah, Code Veronica is like, it's, I want to say there's a gulf still between Code Veronica and 6. Code Veronica is frustrating, but it's still ultimately like a somewhat enjoyable experience in how cheesy and weird it is.
Yeah.
It's
like,
very.
There's still good gameplay mechanics in there. From what I remember playing, because it's still classic Resident Evil at the end of the day.
100%. It's just a very frustrating game to get through, and like there's so many good games in this franchise that like of course it's near the bottom just by virtue of not being the best. You know.
Yeah, it's just not as good as the other ones.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my next one. So what's your one? Because obviously it won't line up.
I've got in between this and RE6. I've just written in like brackets a gap the size of the Grand fucking Canyon.
That's fair.
Just to get across that like every other game is good on the very least for me. Like I'd at least call them like good games. But next up is RE5.
That is actually just above Code Veronica for me. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, 5 simultaneously gets. It's one of those games that, like, depending on like what fandom you're in, it's either overrated as shit or underrated as shit. Because there are a lot of people in the RE fandom that love 5 to death. Like, so I've heard a lot of people saying like, usually if like they play it with co-op, they say it's one of their favorites.
Yeah.
And like I respect that and stuff, but like 5 does have a lot of problems for me as well.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Sheva is as annoying as like some people that absolutely hate her or her AI and stuff, but she's not great either.
No, she's not.
She swallows up healing items like a motherfucker. Give her a sniper and she's fine, but you know.
For me, 5... It's interesting. 5 is fine. Like, it is absolutely a fine game. I just think, like, it's such a strange follow-up to 4, where, like, they were on a path of innovating the franchise, and then they just made the same game in a different location with co-op.
Well, yeah, because RE4 did so well and was such like a smash success, and like, so Capcom clearly like saw that and was like, RE4 but more, put more into the action, put more into the, we'll get 2 main characters instead of 1, we'll make it co-op, oh that'll be good, this is a trend now.
And yet no one thought, let's unlock player movement.
No.
They didn't think about that until 6, but 6 was so far beyond saving that just being able to move while you shoot doesn't fucking mean anything.
You gotta make it at least somewhat like RE4. You gotta make it the same but different.
God.
And that's kind of the downfall of RE5, because on the stuff it does well, it still feels inferior to 4, and the stuff it does bad feels like it drags the game down even more.
Yeah. Like, I love Wesker in 5. That's like
he's the best part of the game.
His best appearance in the whole franchise, as far as I'm concerned. But the story surrounding like Jill with that at the same time is dumb as fuck.
Yeah, it's like a give and take. Like Wesker's character was like at its peak in this game, but Jill's is at her worst because she's basically the brainwashed damsel in distress. And
they dyed her hair blonde for some reason.
I hate that as well, yeah. Why is she blonde?
Why is she blonde?
Why is she blonde? It feels... I don't know if this is like an over-exaggeration, but it almost feels like a bit of a disservice to the character.
No, I think the whole storyline in general for Jill in that game is like a disservice to the character, because it's like, we flash back and we see her and Chris, and then Chris thinks she's died, and it's like, Chris kind of can't catch a break.
No, it's sort of implied, like, the first half of the game tries to imply that Jill was killed off screen by Wesker.
Yeah.
Which, no one believes, like, immediately, because it's Jill fucking Valentine. And at that point, they've already introduced the mysterious other character whose face is hidden for some reason. It's like, okay, that's gonna be Jill.
Yeah.
But you save her, and then she's out of it for, like, the rest of the game. And is only really reserved for a DLC, which, story-wise, is fine, and character-wise, it's alright, but, like, she's sort of neglected in that, and I'm not talking about the Lost in Nightmare stuff, I'm talking about the other one.
Oh, okay. I haven't played any of the Re5 DLC yet.
Okay. I remembered halfway through that she was also in Lost in Nightmare, which was the DLC that's actually good.
Ah, okay. I do need to play those DLCs.
She gets another DLC that basically explains what she was doing for the rest of the game, and it's basically just a mook rush where she heads. It's sort of like a mercenaries map in a way, but like, maybe that's not the best way to describe it. It's a mook rush where you're basically just racing to the end of the section, and then you just get picked up after a small mercenary section.
It's like an extraction game mode, essentially.
It's Fourth Survivor-ish, not as hard though.
Ah, okay.
And then there's Lost in Nightmare, which I'll admit right now is probably the best part of the game for me.
Oh wow!
Because it's basically a love letter to RE1. It takes place in the mansion where they're trying to find Wesker, and it actually brings back some of the survival horror aspects.
Nice. I need to play it.
So it's the only one I had like a lot of genuine fun like playing, but it only lasts like an hour.
Oh,
so
God.
I'm just like, oh.
Damn. That sucks.
Yeah. But the rest of the game is fine.
It's fine. Could have done without the piss filter of like every other game of that generation. And like, people could say, oh, it's part of artistic design. There are games that I will argue to death that it is part of the artistic design. Like Metal Gear Solid 3 uses a very clearly defined filter on the graphics for a certain color grade look, and that is very much in reference to Apocalypse Now and like sort of Vietnam movies of the times. Kind of yellow green look, and it evokes that presence of
Yeah,
Vietnam and that.
And to even like go off of that, I'll say from a game at around that time, like Fallout 3 had that sort of green filter, but that I say that works very well with like the whole themes of like nuclear devastation and like apocalypse and stuff. I'd say that works well, even if I do usually now play it with the mod that takes it away.
I was just
like
about
color,
to say,
but
I think for Fallout 3 it could just do with being dialed back a touch. That's my only issue.
Yeah, you can like just turn down the dial a little bit because it goes like. It really does go nuclear green in some sections, but
5
it works as a stylistic thing.
Yes.
But 5,
yeah, no, I don't like it. The game looks infinitely better to me with it turned off. I think the game has really good art direction without that, so I don't really understand the decision to have that. I guess it was just the style of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 is
line wise, Chris really doesn't get a break though, does he? You sort of mentioned that earlier.
No, because Resident Evil 1 happens and his team dies. He's not the leader, but it kind of it'll weigh on him. He's one of the only other survivors.
Yeah. He lost a good friend. He lost some good friends there.
Yeah. Code Veronica, he shows up again and he's looking for his sister. And that's got to take a toll on him as well.
Yeah. I mean, he thinks he's almost dead probably at multiple points in that game.
Exactly. Then 5.
Not great for his mental health.
5, his partner dies, quote unquote. He thinks she's dead.
Yeah.
6, he just can't make a single fucking right decision. His whole team dies in the opening part of his campaign. And then 7, I guess 7, he's fine. He just shows up at the end. Although, what's his DLC?
He's got his DLC pack.
Yeah.
And not a hero. His entire team dies again.
And then 8, he's an evil bastard for no reason for most of the game.
It was for the greater good. You don't understand. Mia wasn't Mia. We had to shoot her, Ethan. Also, if you checked out this picture of my sister Claire, you should maybe get together. I don't know.
Yeah, no, Chris just... They have one idea for Chris, and it's what if everyone around him died? And they just keep doing that.
Everybody dies. It's just that on loop for like 20 years for that guy. Poor man. Hey, he's got his own therapy though, which is going to the gym. That's why he's so jacked.
He's so fucking jacked.
5 onwards.
Yeah. Oh man. So what's next on your list?
On my list, I actually bump up to Resident Evil 3 Remake.
Oh, I have 7 next.
Ooh, this is gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start?
Let's hear Resident Evil 3 Remake, because I think I'll understand why it's this low. I think I get it.
So again, I very much want to stress, this is a good game.
Mm-hmm.
As a thing on its own, it is a fantastic little 4-hour ROM, but I don't think it was worth the 50, 60 pounds they sold it as at the start.
No, it wasn't worth buying it at full price, as someone who bought it at full price.
Yeah, I thankfully got it as a Christmas gift that year. So, and also a little bit of history. This is actually the first one I played, and completed.
That's right. I forgot about this.
So I have, weirdly enough, it's so low on the list, but I also have a little bit of a weird soft spot for it on a subjective level. It's it's the first one I completed. It's really the one that sort of got me to play the rest of them. So I have to give it a little bit of respect. It's just, compared to the game it's supposed to be remaking, and compared to all the other games, it feels less like a full game and more like a DLC pack for 2.
That is a very valid criticism, for sure. 100% agree. No, definitely.
Because it's been said back so many times in the fandom, there's a lot cut from the original RE3 to the point where it's basically a separate game with some similar story beats. I didn't realize just how different it was from the original until I actually played through the original. But like, the original has like multiple different sections. It's more action based, but there's still more. You can still explore a good chunk of Raccoon City and stuff. There's sections that are. There's the Clock Tower section, which is like a mini version of either the RPD. I mean, you even go back to RPD and like the original as Jill.
Yeah.
There's the original 3 does. I wouldn't say it's like I would say it's the worst of the trilogy, and we'll go into that when I talk more about it. But like, this remake feels like they just wanted to get it over with so they could go straight to 4, which is depressing.
Yeah. I'll save some of my thoughts for when it shows up on my list, but I will say that it's interesting that both the original 3 and 3 Remake suffer from the exact same issue, where their predecessor was so successful they rushed these products out the door and they inevitably suffered for it, because 3 Nemesis, the original version, was originally meant to be a spin-off game following Jill, and Code Veronica was originally meant to be 3. Things happened.
It's a little more. It's a complicated. The story's really complicated because there's a whole lot of different things. But I think Code Veronica was supposed to be the sequel to 2, but it wasn't officially 3.
Yeah, it was strange.
I think originally 3 was going to be its own separate thing entirely, possibly following Hunk from 2 and like that's like a cruise ship sort of thing, which comes back multiple times later on in the series, but.
Yeah.
But that eventually got canned, and eventually they just decided to upgrade the Nemesis game with Jill to RE3 just to keep it on the PS1 consoles and have that trilogy complete there.
But you know, it means that both games end up suffering in the fact that they're kind of rushed and not fully fleshed out. And 3 Make is very much like, it's funny that history repeated itself and we ended up with the same thing. Re-2 Make was so successful, they wanted to get 3 Make done out the door, and so they had the B team work on it, while I assume that A team went in early production of Re-4 Make.
Yeah.
And so this had a deadline of coming out like a year after 2 Remake, and that kind of meant it was a rushed thing that's missing a lot of stuff. It kind of flips most of the assets from 2, but that not entirely. Like, I wanted to say, like, there is a lot of design work having to be put in it, because when people say asset flip, they think, oh, everything's wholesale taken from another game. Still needed to put a lot of work in. Like, there was a whole part of Raccoon City that you can go through that just wasn't modelled for 2, so there is a lot of, you know, unique design work done. Nemesis, Jill, blah, blah, blah.
And again, I want to stress the things it does well, and as we're completely removing the original and seeing it as a companion piece to 2 Make, it's a good game. You can have a lot of fun in it. I've actually played through it multiple times in a speedrun just to see how like fast I can get through the game. I think my record right now is 1.5 hours.
Nice. I can't remember mine. I think it's something like that.
I think it's the only game I've actually managed to get an S rank on, so
nice.
That's a pretty good plus. So I do like the game. It's just there's so much lacking in it that I can't really justify putting it above all of the other games in the series.
Yeah.
On my list, so it sucks. I will say, best part about this game that I will still die on this hill. This is the best version of Jill Valentine.
Oh, for
in
sure.
The series.
Yeah.
The voice actress, I forget her full name. I think it's Nicole Thompson, maybe? I'm not sure. But she does a fantastic job as, like, Jill in this game. And she's still sort of the Jill I think of, like, off the top of my head.
Nicole Tompkins.
Okay, yes. She's great. She is fantastic as Jill, and I would very much love to see her come back in any sort of, like, series. I haven't seen the CG movie I think she was a part of.
Yeah, she was part of Death Island. Yeah, that's where, like, everyone comes together. Like, all the main characters.
I haven't seen that yet. But in terms of the games, I would love to see her come back either in, like, a 1 remake, a 5 remake, or maybe even in 9. Hopefully, maybe.
You know, we never know.
What's this?
She
We're gonna
was
record this.
motion capture for Rose as well from 8 from Village.
Oh, nice.
She didn't voice her, but she did the motion capture. She voiced
That's cool.
Daniela, one of the Dimitrescu triplets.
Oh, that makes sense.
And Elena as well. And 8.
Not bad.
So she's done a lot for the franchise. But yeah, I'd love to see her.
She's heavily involved in the franchise as well. Like she's done like playthroughs of the games and stuff. Like with Susie the Sphere Hunter on like her YouTube channel and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I have seen some of that. I think.
Yeah.
I have 7 for mine, which is I want to say there is still like a jump between 5 and 7. I think 7 is a good game. And this is the point where on my list everything is like I enjoy playing it. Like I think 5 is a bit of a slog and it's a fine game, but this is where we're like
you've hit B tier.
We've hit, you know, probably A and up from here.
Okay.
I'd say 5 is probably a B, Veronica C, and 6 is like F, probably not even on the list, did not score.
It's in trash.
7 is it's a good game. On the first playthrough it's very, very tense, very jump scary, very survival horror. The atmosphere is great. Replaying it, I'm not as hot on it. And I don't know if it's just the experience is different, but I had something like 5 years between my first playthrough and the playthrough when we were in the call doing it.
Yeah.
And it's great up until the last section, and it's the last section that really just kind of unravels it for me.
Yeah.
When you leave the Baker house and you end up on the ship playing as Mia. It's just that's a fucking train wreck and kind of unravels the whole game for me, because it ends up being like a far too long section that kind of dominates the rest of the game for me. So I think 7 is a good experience. It's just it's not. It's the ending for me. Yeah, I think that's the problem.
Yeah, it's the whole last third of the game that I feel like you can really get that, because it's funny enough, it's actually next up on my list as well.
Okay.
So I can actually talk about it a little bit more as well here. It's that whole last third, because like the Baker stuff, it's really good. The house, and even like the swamp parts and stuff of like Marguerite and stuff, that's really good. I love all of that stuff. It's like a pure classic return to form for like Resident Evil, but it's just that last third where it suddenly tries to kick back into the hey, we can do action too thing, but it doesn't work in this game because we've built this whole game around the survival horror aspect.
Yeah,
so it's just clunky, and also the ship is a bitch to navigate.
Oh god, I think that whole last section during that call took like double the length it should have, because at some point like I should add that like we managed to do that whole game in one day.
Yeah, I'm still impressed we did that, by the way.
But at some point you had to look up a guide and guide me through the ship, because at some point I got so lost I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, I don't know where to go, the game isn't communicating it to me.
When I played it myself, I had to do the same thing because I was still getting lost on that fucking ship. It tears the rest of the game down. And the really sad part is once you're done with that ship, you're basically at the end game. Like you just have to go through some of the salt mines, which takes about maybe half an hour, and then you're at the easiest boss fight in the series, and the game's over.
Yep.
Which is, it's a disappointing end to a game that basically revitalized the entire franchise.
Yeah.
But it's purely just on those first 2/3, because they're a really good 2/3 of the game.
I think another part for me is like, I guess I can't say this for 7 because it applies to Village too. But like for replays, I always appreciate like being able to get stuck into the gameplay. Whereas for 7, like a lot of the early parts so heavily scripted, it's hard to like get into. Because like a big factor of, I think it's like worth mentioning that a big factor of the Resident Evil games is like not necessarily speed running in the sense of like I'm gonna do it any percent run, or I'm gonna do like I'm gonna use exploits or whatever, like just in the sense of like I want to beat my record time because the game is constantly timing you, it's giving you a score for it, and it
encourages that sort of like play style.
Yeah, and like you unlock extra stuff for doing it, and getting certain ranks or beating it in under a certain time or doing it in certain ways, whether that's only using the pistol, not opening the item box, only saving however many times. Whereas 7 is like so heavily scripted in the early sequence, and then you've got the boat thing where like for me replaying just feels like kind of a little discouraged in that way, because you only have like a solid hour if you're actually like doing a replay and have like your way around. Like you only have a solid hour in the house and the swampland before you're in the ship again. So it's kind of whereas it's like, you know, not to bring make again back into it, but like you can beat that in 3 hours for either Leon or Claire, and you're an hour in the police station, you're an hour in the sewers, and you're maybe an hour, half an hour if you're fast in the labs. So it gives each section its whole, you know, well-rounded feel. You come back and you go and whatever. Whereas 7, it's like you don't come back, you just move on, and you move on to a really bad part of the game, and then when you've done that bad part, you're at the end. And
the game's over.
Yeah. So
come back for 8.
Yeah. I think it's that replayability part for me that I don't feel with 7.
Yeah, which is a big thing, because like you said, that's a huge part of the RE formula. You're not supposed to just... You can play it for just one playthrough and be satisfied, but you are encouraged to go back, play it again, now that you know everything, and see how well you can master the game.
Yeah.
It's part of the loop of why I love this franchise so much, and why I'm still playing the games pretty regularly even now, just because I want to see how well I do this time, or how fast I can beat the game this time.
Yeah.
Or with this sort of caveat of, I can only save like 5 times or 3 times or so. So it's sad that 7 sort of makes that a challenge when you're stuck in these sections that just aren't fun to play.
I think it's because like after 7's, it was actually after 2 Remake was when they added in the content shop, and I think that was a big game changer for the new formula and like the new design philosophy, both in the remakes and in the new games, where like having that is a good way of coming back and doing more, because like not even just completing the game in certain ways, but just doing certain things in the game and you may not even, you know, consciously know about it. And this sort of ties into a big thing with video games and like progression, especially multiplayer stuff, but that's a whole thing I'm not really willing to pick apart right now. But it's like that idea
we gotta focus on our theme for this episode.
It's like being able to earn something and then unlock something of choice as a result, I think was a game changer for 3 Make and Village, for me anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So, that's all we really wanted to say about 7.
So yeah, for next on my list is the original Resident Evil 3.
Oh, same here.
Which is funny because it means that Remake is above it for me.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. I think the original one is a good game. However, its pitfall for me is that it's a more action-focused game in the skin of 2. And it comes with the caveats of the fact that the item balancing, the movement, the enemy placement is all very similar to 2. And so it's more survival-focused, but it wants to be an action game. And so you kind of have this, like, well, you want me to have an action game experience, but I can't run away from Nemesis in the way you want. I can't fight Nemesis in the way you want, and you're not giving me the ammo to deal with anything, and you're not giving me the items to deal with anything. I have to exploit the game just to deal with Nemesis. Like, there's that, I don't know if it's necessarily, like, iconic exploit, but the part in Raccoon City where you can climb up on, like, a certain part of the geometry, and, like, Nemesis just can't hit you, and so you just deal with him by standing on top of that and shooting him.
Yeah, I know that, and there's also an exploit in when you go back to RPD, if you go into, you know, like the office sort of room where you have like the Welcome Leon like parties.
Yeah.
If you go into like the actual side office there and stand in a very specific spot, Nemesis can't run past like a certain piece of collision.
Yeah,
so you can just sit there and like blast away at him.
There's a body on the floor he can't get past, which is hilarious.
Thank you, Martin. I don't think it's Martin at that point, but whatever.
No.
Maybe it's Brad.
Maybe. Who knows?
We'll just call it Brad.
But yeah, so it is a good game. It's like, it makes itself the most frustrating of that trilogy to play through.
Yeah. I mean, I did state earlier, I think, that, like, original 3 is still, like, the lesser of the trilogy on PS1. And that is true. There's a lot. It is an ambitious title for that trilogy, because it tried to be more of an action thing, and it tried its damn best, but it was very clunky in its execution. Like, the dodge mechanic that so much of the game's combat loop sort of relies on doesn't work half the time. Which makes dodging the way you're supposed to, like, deal with enemies and, like, dodge Nemesis and stuff much more difficult than I think it was really intended to be. And, like, Nemesis is supposed to be difficult to fight. You're encouraged, especially on your first playthrough, to run away from him most of the time and only fight him when you're absolutely forced to. But he's so overpowered compared to the rest of the game that, like, it makes fighting with him not really fun.
It can also make, like...
You go.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it makes getting away from him as difficult as fighting him sometimes, as well. Like, there's times where he just randomly appears if you're exploring Raccoon City, and, like, running away from him is so hard with the way the controls are set up, and, like, just navigating the geometry of Raccoon City, like a wrecked Raccoon City, means you're constantly going to get caught by him. Yeah,
because it's like they had the ideas of what, like, 4 would go on to do with, like, movement, but they weren't on the hardware yet to really capitalize on it, so you're still stuck in classic, like, tank controls, fixed camera angles, with an enemy that doesn't work like that.
No.
To say what I do like about 3, though, I enjoy the areas a lot. I think, looking back, there are a lot of the areas that I really do like. The whole exploring Raccoon City, the whole open area, it can be a bit confusing sometimes, but once you, like, really have a feel of where you are, it can become really fun and even tense when Nemesis is in the fray, because you're like, okay, if he appears here, I'm gonna have to turn around here and go around this route to get to this place. And I think that's something that feels very Resident Evil, and, like, in planning out your play route and stuff, and, like, how you're gonna deal with some certain things. So I like that. The clock tower, it's short. I don't like it as much, I think, as everybody else does, but I think it's still a fine section.
I wasn't so hot on it when I played it. Yeah, I found it very frustrating and annoying to deal with. But, you know, if people enjoy it, that's fair enough. Good on them.
Yeah. I just know people enjoy it because that's usually the thing that people like really get annoyed about that was cut from Remake.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen how 3 Remake handled it, but I also wouldn't say I necessarily miss it that much.
Yeah. That's fair. I just liked it because it felt like a little bit of, hey, welcome back to sort of RE1 style gameplay for a little bit, just to, like, have some breathing room between the high action stuff. Even if the puzzles in 3, I think, are kind of they're definitely the most annoying of the series. That fucking water puzzle, man.
It is the puzzles for me that annoy that make the clock tower and the hospital like the most annoying parts to deal with. Like, they're not great puzzles. Like, there's one in the clock tower that just feels like it's constant guesswork.
Yeah, it's like the paintings or something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's something. It's one of those. It's like, yeah, I think it's the painting one. Yeah.
Like you're trying to find like a certain like order, but like the paintings are like of clocks, and you're supposed to rearrange.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was a while ago, but I remember being annoyed by that, even though miraculously I think I managed to get it done within like 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, it took me a bit.
I purely put that down to dumb luck because the fun thing about Original 3 is that a lot of it is randomized.
Yes, yeah.
On your playthroughs, which can either, depending on what you've gotten, can be a real boon or it can be a real block of frustration.
Hilariously, not even just like randomized to playthroughs, it's randomized per load.
Yeah, you're right, because I remember reloading multiple times and enemies were different.
So I remember going into the police station and I got fucking nabbed by Nemesis after being in the STARS office, which is where you have a 50-50 chance on which gun you get from a locker. And I got one gun before I died by Nemesis fucking grabbing me. And then I got the different one the next time when I reloaded. And I was like, oh, fuck, this is fun.
I think the same thing happened to me, actually.
Because it's either the grenade launcher or...
Magnum?
Magnum, I think. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. But, you know, wild to have the Magnum be a randomized thing you can pick up, and maybe even a place you don't want it, because the... In case you're for some reason listening to this episode and you're not quite sure about how RE does things, the Magnum is supposed to be this very circumstantial, powerful weapon that has very limited ammo.
Yes.
To me, I think to me, I usually only ever use it in like boss fights and stuff, because that's where I feel like it's most useful. But like, whereas the grenade launcher is a lot more useful in your general gameplay.
Yep.
Because it's because especially in RE3, because you're able to mix ammo for it a lot, which gives you like depending on how you work it, you can get a ton of ammo for it.
Yeah. Plus, you have different types of ammo in 3 for it.
Yeah. That's true. And the freeze rounds that you can make for it are like a Nemesis killers. They're that good. So, you really want the grenade launcher, which means you're really screwed out if you get the Magnum. You're not screwed out completely, because you can get like the other weapon at a later stage. It's just, you know, at a later stage
you really
want it now.
Yeah.
I still enjoy RE3 original, but it's definitely the weakest of that.
Don't get me wrong, I still enjoy it. I also appreciate the little quality of life improvement of just being able to walk upstairs properly without interacting with them. Like, that sounds so dumb to anyone listening to this who isn't familiar with the original games at all. But like in 1 and 2, you had to walk up to the stairs and interact with them to move up them.
Yeah.
Whereas in
like
3,
whole action.
Yeah. Whereas in 3, you can just walk up them. Like, it has vertices that you can go up and down, and that applies to stairs or it applies to like ramps. So it's a little more dynamic and its verticality. Whereas like 1 and 2 were very like you would press, you would go up a ladder, and you would probably change camera angles or whatever. And you would go to a new area. Loading screen. Yeah.
I will say, for the quality of life improvement I enjoyed the most in Original 3 was just being able to do the quick turn.
Yeah, that is a big thing. Though if you play emulated, there's cheats for 1 and 2 that put that into those games. I haven't used them personally, but
yeah,
I think
it does make it when you're so used to the quick turn, it does make it 2 specifically, because that's the one I play the most when I go back to the original. It does make it be like, oh god, I gotta get reused to just doing a full 180 like manually.
Yeah. But yeah, that's Nemesis. Nemesis is a good game. It's just not particularly high up for me. I have issues with it.
Yeah, fair enough.
The next one for me is actually 3 Remake.
There you go.
So it's just above the original for me, which is probably a hot take, I realise now.
I think it is, yeah.
I find it really fun, even if it is a rushed product, even if it does cut out a lot from the original game. I think it's a really fun game to play. I think it looks incredible. It's very well executed for what it does. It's also short. Like, I know that that's actually a bad thing in some capacity, but like, there is something to be said for games that you can just play through in like an hour and a half to 4 hours, depending on how, you know, you're kind of taking it.
Yeah.
I just, yeah, it has great replayability for me in that way. Yeah, I just think it's really fun. I think it nails the action sense of it too. It really kind of nails. 3 wanted to be a bit more action orientated, whereas 3 Remake nails it, in my opinion. So I just thought it was a lot of fun to play through.
Yeah, that's fair, and there's definitely a lot of value, I think, in shorter games that I feel like the modern gaming industry really doesn't like to hear.
Yes. It's all about inflating playtime with random bullshit. Looking at you, Rebirth.
Yeah, I love Rebirth, but God, it doesn't need to have that much extra stuff in its world. It makes... This isn't a Rebirth episode.
No. I will
Final
say
Fantasy.
it's absolutely bullshit that you're kind of punished for not doing most of it, because you're going to be severely underleveled as you approach the end game if you don't.
Big time. There's a good. I feel like there's a good chance we'll be having a Final Fantasy VII episode at some point in the near future. So look forward to that and our full thoughts there. But for now, Resident Evil Remake. I feel like there's definitely value in having a game be that short, as long as you're not paying full price.
Yeah,
is my only like asterisk there.
Because I actually said it to you when I started replaying 2 again recently, that like I've got almost 50 hours ish in 2 and 4 between my various playthroughs, whereas for 3, having played through it like maybe 5 or 6 times, I still only have like 15 hours worth of gameplay.
Yeah,
and that's not great for when it launched, like
really
a £50 video game. That's crazy.
That's mad. But yeah, it's still a good game.
Yeah,
I definitely enjoy it. I will say again, the character stuff is a definite improvement over the original. Still the best version of Jill, and I realized I didn't mention how much of an upgrade Carlos was.
Oh yeah, Carlos gets a massive upgrade in Remake.
The dude's a lovable character now, whereas in the original he's just sort of annoying.
Yeah.
I mean, he tries, but it's more like he's trying to be a cool dude, whereas Remake Carlos is an actual cool dude.
So, what's next on your list?
Next up on my list is the one and only original. Way back from 1996. RE1.
Okay, nice. That's still quite low, actually, surprisingly.
Yeah, there's a few games it's sort of right at the middle of my list at this point.
Yeah.
It's a good game.
Yeah, it is.
It's fun. The Spencer Mansion is a really good place to explore. I do want to state I've only played the Jill playthrough of RE1.
Oh yeah,
so
I should say I've only done Jill as well.
I am planning to do a Chris playthrough in the near future. At this point, it's like high up on my list just because I want to experience all that. But for the Jill playthrough, it's fun. There's not too much well, there is some backtracking, but it's not egregious.
Yeah.
It flows really well. The whole exploring the Spencer Mansion is like a gold standard of how you do that kind of game.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know what else I can really say. It's the original. It's good. Go play it.
Yeah.
The only thing I really want to go into is my sort of, I think, our shared hot take when it comes to the original RE1. Which is that we think the original is a better game than the remake.
Yes. I've mentioned that I haven't played the remake in 0 at the start of the episode, and playing Remake is not for a lack of trying. Like, I just can't get into it. I don't like the art style change. The original had a very considered look that was inspired by The Shining, and then I don't know what the fuck the art style is for Remake. It's very intense. There's
Maybe the Haunted Mansion is what I keep calling it.
That's actually a good... It's also very maximalist in a way that I find kind of annoying to look at. There is so much detail that, like, I think it's not a great look for a horror game, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I've said this before, I respect the direction they went with Remake. I can understand a lot of people like enjoying that, and I understand people appreciating the style. It's just, I feel my big problem with Remake is that it feels like so much of what they added like obstructs the feeling structure and a lot of like the flow of the original game. Yeah. The biggest like problem with is the way you get the sword key in Remake, because in RE1, especially in like the Jill playthrough, a lot of the doors that are unlocked by the sword key you can unlock like pretty quickly as Jill, either with a lockpick or just because you pick it up like pretty easily. It lets you get to the actual meat of the game quicker. Yeah. With Remake, you are stuck for a good hour, possibly hour and a half, depending on how well you play, just trying to get the fucking sword key, which requires you to go up and down like to the top of the mansion to get this puzzle, and then you have to fight 2 dog enemies that can one-hit kill you if you don't do it just right, which sucks as a new time player, because I played this as my first tank controlled. I played Remake as my first tank controlled like RE, and that's because everyone keeps like recommending it to you. No. Yeah. It's not a good place to start. Start with 2.
Yeah, it's
start with OG 2.
It's not very beginner friendly, for sure. I don't think anyway. At least not in my opinion. Yeah.
It just feels like Remake adds so much fluff that so many people are like, well, it's added content. It's not bad. It's the same game but more, and it's like, no, it's the same game but like more annoying.
Yeah. Yeah. Stop interrupting my original story with fanfic content. Thank you very much.
Let me get to the point. The only worthwhile thing you've added is the Lisa Trevor stuff, and that's purely from a lore standpoint because the actual gameplay is shit. Because our boss fight isn't that great, I'm sorry to say.
Oh, it is always the Lisa Trevor thing that sticks in my mind, is like, why the fuck did you put that in? Because it just doesn't look fun to do.
It's a cool story to have as like background stuff, but like I'm happy to leave that into like the notes. Yeah. And maybe like a little cameo thing, not like something that actively like knocks out the main character and drags them into their boss fight for no reason. Yeah. Back in the closet, Lisa.
Well, there's our space to complain about Remake, I guess.
It was gonna happen. I knew it was gonna happen the moment we started talking about one, so I just wanted to get it out.
That's fair. So actually, hold on. So these are ranked lists. So I want to mention that like I'm up to 7 on mine. I had 12 games, so we started at 12 and we've worked our way up to 7 for me. So we're around midway through.
I'm on game number 6, and that's remembering that I'm a game short.
You're a game short. Yeah. So for me, number 6 is Village.
Ooh, that's actually kind of surprising.
But we're now at the point where like all of these ones are stellar. Like, okay. These are like the top games for me. Like, even though we're not at like
the 3,
yes, Village is an incredible time. I didn't gel with it when it released, and I didn't come around to playing it fully until this year. But it is still an incredible game that I think I've actually probably played it the most out of all of them.
Yeah, that's why I'm surprised it's actually on game number like 5 for you.
It's game number 6 for me, simply just because of like the rest are just so incredibly good. This is a really good one, and it hits that perfect part of replayability that I was talking about. I've had so much fun doing the various different things of replaying it, whether that's getting a certain rank, certain time, doing certain things, unlocking certain things. I think at this point I've got most of the content shop unlocked. And I just only have like maybe 2 or 3 base game related achievements before I've got all of them. I think it's just to do with having certain amounts of money on you at a certain time, like whether it's, I think there's one for like getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or something, or like all 7s. It's just a very fun game to me. It's very reminiscent of 4, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, I don't think. There's only one section that is very heavily scripted and I think drags the game down a little bit on replay value, less so than like an actual... It's a very good part of the game, but like if you're replaying it, you can't really complete that part any faster.
No.
It's the part where you're stuck in a house and have to escape a giant fetus.
Yeah. It's like this... Not the second... It's like the third section of the game, because the castle is technically the second section of the game. But like... The second place where you're really supposed to like explore like an area. But like you're not really exploring because it's so heavily scripted. You're supposed to follow a set amount of steps and stuff, and you can't really speed that up.
Yeah. Like I've probably got
on
that
replay. You're basically just trying like, okay, I just gotta get through this whole section, go fast.
I've probably got it as like efficiently down as I could when I was replaying it because I knew where everything was. But like, there's certain dialogue you need to listen to. You need to wait on certain things happening before a door will unlock, or you can unlock the door because like you're not only hearing a character's voice talking to you, but you're also seeing certain hallucinations before the giant fetus comes in. So like it's only so far down because everything else is just so fucking good. Like it's a really good game. I've put a lot of time into.
That's very fair. Yeah, I actually have RE8 as next up above from RE1 Original.
Nice. So it's number 5 for you.
Yeah, number 5.
Nice.
I had to look at it for a second because, spoiler alert from my list, I've got 2 games that hit the same spot.
Oh.
So they're sort of tied to a spot.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I couldn't pick between one or the other, I'm sorry.
But no,
yeah, 8 is good as well. I like how much it takes from 4, but it's not a carbon copy.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing for it. It's not... It's very nostalgic of 4 and inspired by 4, but it's not just 4 again.
Yeah, that's what Remake is for.
Yes.
But, it feels like here, especially like the first person's perspective really shines. Because it was good in 7 for like the scare factor, but like there were times in 7 where I was like, I kind of wish this was more like a classic third person sort of game right now.
Yeah.
Whereas in 8 it feels like it really comes into its own, like with how you're like exposed to, along with like the actual shooting mechanics being fun.
Yeah.
Because in 7, because they're focused so much on the survival horror aspect, the shooting is a bit non-emphasized.
Yeah. It's kind of hit or miss, I think.
Yeah. 8 really like sort of masters that thing though, like from the get-go, and it helps with the flow of the game a lot more, as long as its story that I actually do really like. I think it's one of the strongest stories in the whole series, to be honest.
Yeah. It's weird because like I'm having to like jog my memory on the story because like replaying it, I would just skip a lot of the cutscenes just to get through the gameplay. But it is a very strong story. There are things I take some issue with, but it is overall like very good. Think Mia dying, but also Ethan's fate and general predicament as we find it out, I find a bit odd from a narrative standpoint.
Okay, should we put a spoiler alert?
Yeah, spoiler alert. It is the most recent game, so like if you haven't played it, fair enough, but also go play it.
Yeah, it's been 3 years. It's on sale. It's on sale a lot of the time. You can go buy it.
Ethan's molded.
He's a mold people person.
He's a mold person, and for some reason Mia knew that and still had a baby with him.
Well, Mia might just be into that. You don't know her. You don't know what she likes.
Sure, but And then she dies.
Really likes Ethan.
And then Chris fucking domes her in the opening of the game.
It was for the greater good. It had to be done.
Yeah.
And we're also not telling you about this, Ethan, because fuck you.
The actual story of like when you reach the village and Castle Dimitrescu and Lady Maria, no, not Maria, the person that they all like work for.
Oh,
Mother Miranda, that's it.
Mother Miranda.
Like all that stuff's really interesting. It's the part that sandwiches it, which is the setup. Don't really get Chris coming in and doming Mina, and then
I should
out.
stress when I say the story is really good, I'm talking mainly about the whole finding like Rose and the Mother Miranda stuff. It's all the Chris stuff that sucks.
Yes, there is a section where you play as Chris, and it's like not a very particularly good part of the game.
I think that section's fine, but yeah, it's not as fun.
But yeah, it is the strongest, like, I think, story-wise of the newer games, I would say. I still prefer the story of, like, 2, but I think 2, people would probably have issue in the fact that, like, you kind of need to either read a lot of the notes or just kind of like watch a lot of YouTube videos about the game to get like a full fleshed out version of the story, and also probably like playing the remake as well helps. So as much as I prefer 2's story, which also partially comes down to characters, like I think as presented from a narrative experience of just the game itself, like Village is probably the best one.
Yeah, definitely. Ethan is the best dad in the universe. It's awesome.
Even if he is a moldy weirdo.
Yeah, but the thing is, he doesn't know that until like he almost dies the first time. But like, so like up until then, he's getting like his hands cut off and like limbs are being torn off, but he's just sticking them back together because he's just like gotta find my baby.
Then he'll just dump liquid over himself to heal up. Like, my guy.
I love that 7 happened and it just turned him into, okay, whatever, this is what's happening now, I just gotta get a move on here. It is like the classic horror star to action star like pipeline.
Yeah.
That is just like solidified in Ethan going from scared guy in 7 to, okay, let's just fucking get this over with, I'm gonna find my daughter. Loads shotgun.
Damn.
And obviously, and all the other like characters that like Mother Miranda's sort of like group with Lady D and stuff. She's fun for the hour you spend with her. Yeah. You've got Nick Cage, Magneto, Heisenberg, who has a section that on some days I find annoying, on some days I find really fun.
Yeah,
the factory thing.
The factory is like. One playthrough I'll really enjoy it, the next one I'll fucking despise it. It's so fun, like how you can just flip on a dime on the factory section, because sometimes you walk in and you go, oh fuck, I forgot I have to do all this as well, and other times you just like have a really fun time blasting through it, because it is like a whole section unto itself that feels very familiar to the formula of RE games.
Yeah, and I love its whole aesthetic, where it's basically like if you've ever seen like or you've ever heard of the film Frankenstein's Army, it's basically just that whole concept put into the game, where like he's just stitching together bodies with like machinery and stuff, and he's got these like monstrosities like chasing you down. It's great. But it's also annoying.
Yeah.
Because you have to navigate the fucking maze of a factory.
You think you're like at the end of the game and you walk into this whole other like 2-hour section and you're like, I just want this to be over with.
Here we go again. At least Heisenberg has very entertaining Nick Cage energy.
Yes, Heisenberg's probably one of the best. Like, I know everyone gravitates towards Lady D, but that's for different reasons.
Yeah, that's not for legit reasons. That's just because y'all need to be bonked.
Yes, but Heisenberg's like probably the most entertaining character in that game. I think. Yeah, because there's not really any other ones that I particularly enjoy. The rest of them, like outside of Lady D and Heisenberg, I don't really care for. The
Moreau, I think.
Yeah, there's the one with the doll, and then there's the one that turns into a big fish.
Yeah, they're sort of the weaker one of like the two of like the four.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's Village.
That's Village. It's a fun one.
Yeah. So what's next on your list?
Next up on my list is the original RE4.
Wow, we've synced up again.
We're getting into my like absolute perfection of a game like list right here.
Yeah.
Because what can we say about original RE4? That hasn't been said a million times before.
That's it. Everyone has said just about everything about this game. I had a fear when I first jumped into playing this that I wasn't going to enjoy it, and I thought I was going to feel it was overhyped. Especially coming off the back of the remake for the fourth game.
Which we will get to, don't worry.
Yes. But no, it's genuinely like an incredible game. I thought I was going to get hung up on semi-tank controls in like a 3D environment, because that's like a big change of the game. But no, it controls incredibly well. It's a well-executed game.
The rest of the game is very much built around that whole moveset.
Yep. And it's got a really entertaining version of Leon as well to follow.
They said, "Fuck it, he's an action star. He's an action movie star now, and he loves it."
He's gonna flip over shit. He's gonna make quippy one-liners.
He's gonna play bingo. He's gonna say, "Does your right hand come off?" He is so cheesy, and I hope. This version of Leon is just one of the best. Only surpassed by one we'll get to in a second.
Fair enough.
I had the same thing of you, where I wasn't sure how much I'd like it going in because I was also coming off the back of Remake at the time. But like, it just works. It just works, man.
Yeah.
You can just see how, especially at the time period, it really redefined a lot of how, not even just survival horror, but just third-person shooters as well would form going forward. I'm at a loss for words because there's so much of this game that's been like said to death already. Like, you know what RE4 is about. If you're listening to this, you've probably played it already. You know how good it is.
If you've made it this far into the episode, which is shaping up to be a beefy one,
no regrets.
You should have played it, and if you haven't, fucking Jesus, do yourself a favor. It's on everything at this point. You can get it on PlayStation 4. You can. And 5, I guess, because backwards compatibility. You can get it on Xbox, you can get it on Switch if you want, for some fucking reason, if you wanted to play it on that. You can get it on PC.
You can get it on Java phones.
You can probably get it on Amazon Luna if you wanted to play it with a fucking Fire Stick remote, I guess.
If it plays Doom, it also usually plays RE4. The only unique thing I think I can, like semi-unique thing I can really say is that Ashley isn't as annoying in the original as everyone says she is, but she's also not great as a character, to be honest.
But like, I think generally everyone's improved in Remake, so it makes it like, when you go back, there's a bit more like, okay, you're not your best version of yourself.
Yeah. The only things I can say that are lacking in Original 4, and this is just because of how much other games have improved the stuff, or just because of things that don't really matter, is one, Original Separate Ways isn't as good as it could have been, because it's a PS2 made extra at the end of the day. It's still fun. I got enjoyment out of it. I actually replayed it a few months ago and was like, okay, this is actually not that bad. play, because I didn't really like it that much at the first playthrough.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy it all too much when I played it. It very much felt like an obligation at that point.
Yeah. It's very much I need to complete the game, and this is like the only game mode left. I'd say it's fun. It's just, don't go expecting anything really deep or anything extra.
I think my only like thing to say about it is it's insane just how much effect this had on the industry as a whole, because I mentioned it earlier, I replayed all the Dead Space games recently, and like the first game, the original one, is so heavily inspired by Resident Evil 4. Like it's crazy. Like it's Resident Evil 4 in space, I think is the best way I can describe the first Dead Space game.
And that's how you sell it to me, because then it makes me want to play it.
And then like 2 is just a more linear version of that, with like all the ideas fleshed out. Like it's still heavily inspired by 4, but it's got its shit together as its own unique version of that, as like Re4 in space. So without Resident Evil 4, I wouldn't actually have one of my favourite horror game series that I had before Resident Evil, because I played Dead Space first a long time ago as a kid. So I guess...
So, huge respect.
Yeah, everything kind of ties up in the end, I guess. You know? But yeah, so that's...
Last thing I want to say that's sort of lesser that I almost forgot to mention. Original RE4's Mercenary is very bare bones, but that's just because it's like the one where they were really figuring out what to do with it, so I can't even blame it that much.
Yeah, I don't think I played Mercenaries in the original version of 4 when I played it.
It's fine. It's fine.
So what's next for you?
This is where 2 of the games are tied for second place.
Okay. Wait, second? I'm on 4th.
Well, again, they're 2 games. I had to I had to just go from 4 to 2.
Oh god, okay.
So, and this is both versions of RE2.
Ah, interesting. So for me,
I can't pick one.
The next one is 2 Remake, which is 4th for me. So I'll hand it to you first, because you've got both versions together.
Yeah. I can't pick one. They work both. It's amazing the remake came out 20 years later, but it works as a really good companion piece for the original.
That's very true.
To give a bit of history, I mentioned earlier I played Remake once, but right after I played it, I went straight into RE2 Remake. And the funny thing is, I had actually played a bit of RE2 Remake first, not long after I got it. But that was at the time when I was too scared to play horror games, so I didn't get through it past the hour when I got stuck on the police station. So I finally went back after completing RE3, fell in love with the entire game, wasn't scared anymore, basically got through all my fears right there and then, just had a fun time. And then played it again 3 more times because I couldn't help myself. It's just so good. It is a perfect reimagining of an already perfect original game, which I then went back to play 6 months later, emulating it because I couldn't, because GOG didn't have them at the time.
No, yeah, they only came out recently this year, so.
And I was genuinely surprised on how much I loved the original as well. Because the original RE2, RE2 Remake has some stuff cut from the original too, so it doesn't feel like RE2 is original's been completely replaced. But also just the way the whole RPD is set up is very different, and there's so much of the structure of the game that is different, that it felt like a perfect blend of an experience I was familiar with at that point, but also was playing it in a fresh new way.
Yeah. Sorry, you go. No, you finish. You finish.
No. I feel like I'm just trying to pull out my thoughts. Here you go.
That's fair. I think I agree with most of what you said. I really love it. It was it was my third overall Resident Evil game. I had played 5 back when it came out. I played 7 when it came out, and then I got 2 Remake when it came out. And I fell in love with it, and I spent a lot of time in it. I played through it multiple times. It's an incredible reimagining of that original game that presents the narrative kind of mostly faithfully. It looks incredible. I think it runs incredibly well on a lot of different hardware, because this is one of this is only the second game that they made using RE Engine, and that thing is like magic. That thing is a black box of you can do anything with it, and it's an incredible engine.
The game looks incredible.
Yeah, and for the time it came out, 2019, and like how much games have kind of progressed forward in terms of just visual fidelity, and like how there's this constant thing of like if I play a game on PC, you'll usually hear me going, oh, it plays great, and my PC is more than capable of handling it, but it has this constant stuttering, and that's because a lot of game engines now, they look great, but they have unstable frame rates due to like traversal stutter, which is to do with the way they load in worlds and textures and cache everything, and it means games kind of stutter a lot on PC, whereas consoles, because it's like to do with frame rate, like they're running at a constant 60, there may be a little bit of a dip, not as much, whereas Resident Evil RE Engine, I've never experienced any of that. Even as they've constantly improved it, and like visual fidelity has gone up with each game, with like 2 to 3 Remake is still like an insane jump. Like 2 looks incredible, but 3 also looks like a step up too in presentation. And then you've got Village, which looks insanely good. But the only downfalls for me, I think, and this mainly comes from the current replays I did recently, the A and B scenarios kind of feel like they're lacking compared to the originals.
They sort of, from what I've like actually learned since, I think, I'm not sure if this is actually true, but there is an idea that like originally they weren't going to do any B scenarios at all for Remake.
Wow, that would have been bad.
Yeah, but then like they decided I can't remember if it was like the devs said we really should probably add like something to them, or like a fan group sort of heard and like called them out on it, and they were something along those lines. I'm not sure. This might just be a rumor that's like unconfirmed, but basically that's why the second run throughs or like the B scenarios are so lacking, is because originally they weren't planning to do them at all.
That's crazy, because like if
I know
the B scenarios are pretty much just like the A scenarios but gutted out a little bit to make them faster to play through, whereas like if you played the B scenario in the original, like they were vastly kind of different. Like there were certain parts you would do that were the same, but like you were doing them all like differently.
It's a whole different like chain of events almost.
Yeah, because like some parts are maintained, like obviously Leon and Ada's, you know, escapade, and then like Sherry's section, and like Claire and Sherry, but like Claire meeting Sherry is like a completely different set of events in the original. And like playing as Sherry is a completely different thing altogether in the original. That's not to say that I think actually playing as Sherry is probably the most creative part of 2 Remake in general, because it's like a whole reimagining of like a different set of events, and there's a different location, and I think it fleshes out another character from the original that kind of you only get like a certain amount of like, oh, you're a weirdo from in the original. He's sort of very much implied to be like a dick, whereas in like the remake he's very much like, ugh. Yeah, it's just that once you've played it multiple times you can't help but notice you fight Birkin the same way as both characters, and then Annette dies twice. You also kill Birkin twice, actually. And so it just kind of makes it feel a bit like, oh, okay, I feel there wasn't as much consideration around the B scenarios and making them feel like fully fleshed out versions, because like in the original B scenario, as Leon, you would fight Super X instead. of Birkin, and like that's a whole separate section. Like in Remake, you do fight Super X, quote unquote, but it's just a burned up version of him that falls down on you, and like you just shoot him and wait until Ada throws you the on an elevator, whereas like you're pretty much pressed up against the clock. And I say this like there are similarities, but it's the execution just doesn't feel as well thought out.
There aren't as many like varieties depending on who you like play as first and like the story compared to like the original. Because like going off like what you said, like in the original version, like no Mr. X was sort of like was only ever appeared in the B scenario of the original game, so he was only following whoever the character of the B scenario was.
Yeah.
Whereas in 2 Make, no matter what, no matter who you pick first, Leon always fights Mr. X at the end.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah. Whereas Claire always fights, her final boss is always Birkin on like the train. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but in the original, if you have Claire B, she's the one that actually takes down Super X at the end.
Yeah, that's right. Because
which I think is also the only time in the series where she comes into almost contact with Ada, which is funny to think about.
Yeah, because like you're not meant to know who threw her the rocket launcher, right? Yeah.
Well, if you've played like Leon A, you probably have an idea that that's Ada, but Claire has no idea.
Yeah.
So that's funny.
Why would Ada even throw her the rocket launcher is the question too. Like, she just sees a woman, I think she's kind of would be like, okay.
One, she's just nice like that, and two, I think this is why Leon B was usually the canon.
Yeah.
Going forward, like the original timeline.
Mm-hmm.
Remake tries to do like a sort of thing I can respect, where they try and make a more canon version of events by having less variety, but at the same time it's less variety, so it's not as fun.
Yeah, that's why it's like a little lower for me.
Okay, I still can't choose between. It's the gameplay for me, because like the gameplay is like just top notch in both of them in their respective like styles. Like the original 2 is like the perfect like version of the classic style, which is the fixed cameras and the tank controls. I think that gets it down to the point where it's the most fun.
Yeah.
And it's like perfect. And 2 Make, I think, is the perfect style of the modern version of the survival horror stuff, where like enemies are very tanky. You've really got to like watch your step. You can only take down certain enemies very effectively in certain ways that you've got to figure out. And the RPD feels so much like a maze.
Yeah.
But like it's fun to navigate, and once you got it down, you feel like a genius. I can't pick between the two. They're both just as good for different reasons.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll. I guess I'll spoil my list. The original version's at the top for me. Like, unequivocally the best game in the franchise. Just no ifs, ands, or buts. 2 Remakes just kind of fell a little bit, having now played the rest of the franchise, and like seeing the original and how it compares to it, I just think the original feels like the much more fleshed out and considered game, whereas like 2 Remake is an incredible feat of production, and like it's incredible to play. It's really fun, and like navigating RPD and navigating even the sewers is quite fun. Actually, no, I fuck the sewers in the remake. I kind of don't like them that much.
Yeah. I will say it is a plus to the original that like the sewers only takes up like half an hour at most.
Yeah, I kept getting lost in my B run of Leon in the sewers this time in remake. But like, yeah, I just think the original still surpasses. That's not to say that it's fourth. Like it's
it's really still a fantastic game. I just understand why the original would just overtake it.
So next on
between the two, though.
That's fair. That's very fair. I mean, the next on my list is actually the original, but the director's cut, I should add.
Okay.
I just really, really enjoy it, and I don't think I can say much more than most people have already said. I just think it's a really fun game. I like the cheesiness of the original
Yeah, we didn't even
presentation.
go into that when we were talking about remake. How like remake is still a little cheesy, but like they made it a lot more serious than the original RE1 with
Yeah.
the best dialogue in video game history.
No, don't open that door.
Wesker, you're pitiful. Chris, stop it. Come on, I worked so hard. Stop laughing at my work.
I also like
I love
something that the rest of the games never really did is that like certain decisions you make in the original can have an effect on your ending.
Oh yeah.
Like Barry for I think it's mainly just Barry, isn't it, for Jill's run? I think.
Yeah, depending on like at a certain section, I think it really hinges on like. If I remember right, you get after like a boss fight, you get like stuck in a hole.
Yes,
it makes sense, but it makes sense in context. But like you get stuck there, and Barry asks you to like wait there, and he'll grab a rope, and you can you can actually wait there until he gets the rope, or you can continue on, like into your own way to escape. But depending on if you wait or not, it depends on if Barry's going to die later in the game or not.
Yeah, I always waited for him when. Well, I say always. Like I've only played it once so far, but like I waited for him, and I didn't know that until like afterwards. But I find that an interesting like thing. Also, if you, I think this only goes for director's cut, but if you have Barry alive and you then go to the balcony, you know, where is it Brad?
I think it's Forrest.
Like that plays out differently compared to if you have Barry or if you don't. So I think there's small little changes like that in the director's cut where they kind of fleshed out the idea of like Barry still being alive. So, but yeah, it's great. I don't know.
It's a good time. It's classic.
Yeah, I kind of didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did. But no, it's quite high up for me there.
I will say, as well, just for like to go on the original, just one for like the last point. Its atmosphere, especially the original. I know remake has its own sort of atmosphere, but I don't like it as much as like the original's atmosphere. That Shining-esque sort of horror, where like you're isolated in this place where you don't know, and like it seems fine on the surface, but there's something not quite right. Like going on here and stuff, and whereas remake sort of goes overboard, I believe, in like the whole aesthetic, which I think just kind of takes me out of it in an ironic way.
No, I agree. I think it's like that. Everything in the original like is normal, but everything feels off because there's no one there, and then you encounter the zombies, and it's not until you get like down into the underground that you realize how fucked up everything is. Whereas like you immediately walk in your remake and you're like, wow, this place is fucked up.
Oh boy, I sure do hope nothing nefarious is happening here in this Scooby-Doo-esque house.
Oh, you mean there's zombies in this mansion? Oh, who'd have fucking thought?
I'm gonna be honest, I'm expecting a ghoul to come out any second. Oh look, a giant snake. Can't say I expected that, whereas in the original it's like, is that a giant fucking snake?
Where the fuck did that come from?
God, finding Yon the first time was such a what the fuck moment.
And then you got the hunters showing up like immediately after that too. When you go back to the mansion, you're like, oh, what the fuck are these?
Oh, that FMV where it's like a first person perspective of it like hunting you down and like opening the door behind you. That specifically, and this is personal bias. It's such a 90s like FMV look where it's like early CG and stuff, but like it perfectly captures exactly what I want from like the original RE1.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's really not much I can say about the original one. Classic, Stone Cold, number 3 for me.
Can't wait for the Chris playthrough.
Yes. So
there's 6 inventory slots.
So I assume next for you is
my number 1.
Yeah, and it's Reformake.
It's It's perfect. It is the perfect game. I love it so much. I can't find anything wrong with it, man. It is possibly the best game I've played of this generation so far.
Wow, that's crazy because Cyberpunk is also this gen.
Yeah, I consider that. I said that a little bit, and I said Cyberpunk was one of, but I think four makes still. Because the thing is, Cyberpunk still has its sort of problems, whereas 4 make, I think, is actual perfection in a game.
Damn. I will say that, like, I can't see it right now because in my list, but I think 4 remake and original 2 are like fully 5-starred on my list.
As they should be.
So let me see. Yeah, I got original 2 remake, 4 are all 5 stars. 4 remakes, sorry, are 5 stars for me.
Good.
So I agree. Like, I genuinely think it's a near perfect game. It's so fun to replay as well.
From the first few months I had it, I played it like 5-6 times in a row. Because I was just having that much fun and I couldn't stop myself. I was addicted to the game. And since then, just like a year like past that, I think I've gotten, in terms of full playthroughs, I think I'm at 8.
Damn.
And I don't feel any burnout. I could do it again like tomorrow if I wanted to.
I think I've played it through in full 4 times currently. Maybe. I played it through once. I played it through in a call with you. I think I might have replayed it after that, and then maybe right after Separate Ways.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I played Separate Ways like twice through at this point as well. Like, I'm not like counting like my Separate Ways playthroughs.
Yeah.
Or how many hours I put into Mercenaries.
Oh yeah, I think I've only.
You go.
I think I've only played Mercenaries enough to unlock stuff. I don't think I've done like, unlike Village, where I actually went through and like specifically played it to unlock the achievements. I don't think I've done that with Mercenaries mode in 4.
I played Mercenaries in 4 so much. I've unlocked every character, but I've also done the thing that, like, I think it's 5 stars or 4 or 5 stars on every stage with every character to unlock the RPD costume.
Jesus Christ.
And that took me like a full like day and a bit to like complete, and I didn't feel like that at all.
Wow.
I was having so much fun. I love how it plays. It's like the perfect gameplay. It's like you take everything that was good about the original 4 and you improve upon it with as much as you can with modern like gameplay mechanics and stuff, and it's just perfect.
Yeah.
It's genuinely perfect. And it only got more perfect when Separate Ways came out and they added in the stuff that they cut, like the laser hallway. While also improving Ada's story so that it's actually fun to go through.
Yes, it doesn't feel like a slog or an obligation. It's also not frustrating. Like, I remember the original Separate Ways feeling like super frustrating to play through at certain points.
It feels like an actual extra campaign, and I love it. It is perfect. It is the cream of the crop for me.
Yeah, for me, it's second. It just sadly, as good as it is, like amazing as it is, it just can't displace 2 for me. Like, there's something about the vibe, just it's the thing that really, like, 1 is the genesis of the franchise, but like 2 is what kicked it into high gear. And
I do want to, and I will stress, but that I understand that, and like I do stress that, like, as much as I've just said that it's a perfect game, it is still very close to both 2-make and the original 2. That's just how good those games are as well. And sometimes I do actually wonder to myself, if I play like RE2 one more time, am I gonna have that displays 4-make? But then I play 4-make again, and like I can. It's too good.
That's fair. I mean, yeah. Damn. It's incredible that the franchise like only has so far like legitimately like 1 bad game
Yeah.
Like, there are fine games, and then there's good games, and then there's amazing games, but, like, to only have one bad game, granted it almost fucking killed off the franchise, but, like...
Yeah. It's impressive that they've had, like, so many bangers.
Yeah.
Another banger by Capcom Japan.
It's crazy they never actually once, like, at least on the mainline side, gave one to, like, Capcom USA. Because that was the issue with a lot of franchises in the sort of, like, 7th gen. With the...
I wonder if if they did that with the light gun games. I can't remember.
I'm
not sure if Survivor was Capcom USA.
That's a good question.
I do want to state, by the way, I think our Resident Evil specifically has a lot of, like, combining hands with the two sort of, like, divisions, because, like, I feel like Capcom, like, USA at least has, like, a good hand in, like, either the script or, like, how the story comes out, especially nowadays.
Oh yeah, I mean, it is worth mentioning that, like, even as back on the original, like, PS1 games, like, the English dub was the only dub, and, like, in Japan it just had Japanese subtitles, because it was so trying to capture a certain Americanness that they just, you know, they didn't localize it in the sense of dubbing it in Japanese. They fully intended to have it presented in English, which is the same, I think, with the remakes, because, like, I played through 2 remake with, like, the Japanese dub, and there's not even, like, lip syncing for that, so it's like clearly intended to have English audio with subtitles, I think. Yeah.
I didn't even talk about how RE4 Remake has, like, my favorite version of Leon as well, even better than, like, the original one. Because Nick, I forget his last name. Oh my god, Nick Leon. Hold on. Wait, that's an actual guy. Wait, Resident Evil. I can't type. Resident You can do it.
Evil. Nick Apostoles. I believe. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. It's spelled weird.
Like Nicole Tompkins with Jill, he is the definitive version of Leon for me. Like,
yes.
He somehow perfectly captures Leon's naive rookiness in 2. And then manages to so naturally evolve that into, like, the sort of traumatized, sad, but also cheesy as fuck dumbass that is RE4 Leon. He feels terrible about what happened in RE2, but he's still doing, like, flips and shit, and he's still saying, like, one-liners.
Yeah.
Only this time the game's like, you know, he's doing this out of trauma, you know, like, we're not forgetting what happened. And all the interactions with the better Ashley is just,
yes,
love it.
Yeah, no, it's one of those perfect, almost near perfect games. In fact, no, original 2, 4 remake are, like, genuinely 100%, I think, perfect as they are for what they are.
Exactly.
I got no notes.
S+ Capcom, S+.
Yes. So yeah, this has been a mega episode talking about Resident Evil. Jesus, another 2-hour episode. That's crazy.
If it was going to be anything, I'm glad it was this.
Oh, 100%. Who knows? Maybe it'll perform like the Godzilla video. Let's see.
We need, like, a bunch of Leon faces and maybe one of Buff Chris.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you guys for listening to this episode. We're just there's nothing else to before we go off on another tangent, and this turns out into
we've gotten through all of our thoughts.
Yes.
I think.
And my throat is starting to hurt. So
I am starving.
Same. Thank you guys for listening to this episode. And we'll see you guys next week where we're talking about My Dress Up Darling and Cyborg 009 Re-Cyborg. I don't know. The title of that film confuses me.
You'll hear our thoughts on that film
yeah.
next week. It's fine.
And I guess it's worth mentioning December, no Christmas episodes. That was an accident last year where Tokyo Godfathers ended up being in December.
Yeah. That wasn't initially planned.
No. And then at the beginning of January, I'll be mentioning this in all the episodes this month, there should be an episode on January 3rd. However, I'm just going to put out like an EX episode. I don't want to do a new episode that close to New Year when everyone's just chilling, hungover, fucking, I don't know. Enjoy your time. But enjoy a compilation, I guess. Nothing too important will be going out that day. Plus, it's a 5-week month, and I was like, do we really want to do an extra episode just for that close to New Year?
Yeah, let's just not. Let's just
not.
give ourselves a little break.
Yeah, exactly. Let's just enjoy the festive season. So yeah, we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.